Hello, everyone. It's Larry Johnson, your host for Eight Principles Voices. And I'm really excited to get into this interview I'm looking for today. Dennis C. Miller. And Dennis does something that I really like board governance. People who know me know, okay, here we go. Another lecture about boards. No, we're going to find out some fun things today. As someone who is, well, look at us, the two eggheads here. We both don't have any hair, so we must know something. Okay. So I'm going to introduce Dennis. He's a long time individual with this, a lot of experience. He's going to tell us a little bit about it, and then we're going to kind of go back and forth and maybe uncover some new nuggets that we hadn't learned before. So welcome, Dennis.
Larry, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be
You
a guest.
Now you obviously have your own firm, but you didn't start that way. So how did it all start for you?
My career started in healthcare. I was a graduate student at Columbia University School of Public Health back in when Abe Lincoln was president, I think. And uh, a mentor recommended me for a job as with a CFO at a medical center because then he goes, "You're smart, but you don't have any experience." Because I sold tennis rackets and ski equipment when I was an undergraduate. So anyway, I got involved in healthcare before you know it. Became a chief financial officer. Um, became an executive vice president, COO, and then years later became the president CEO of a major medical center. Um, and and I was a 38-year-old CEO, 49-year-old CEO, and had the experience of obviously amongst other things was raising money. And then after about 25 years in the healthcare field, Larry, I decided to step down and do something else. And without going on, it was a little divine intervention. I said, I'm going to devote my life to helping nonprofit organizations. I started a firm, Dennis C. Miller was an S corporation. It was just me at the time, board governance. Before you know it, we had over 20 people. We did executive search all over the country for CEO C-suites. And then last year, I kind of transitioned that. So I'm not doing search, and it's just a handful of us right now. And yeah, I do board and CEO leadership, coaching, consulting, evaluations, assessments, retreat facilitation, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Well, you said something that really got my attention, and that is when you said the word divine intervention. Oftentimes, some of the best turns in our life are unexpected like that. And as I like to say, uh, life is what happens while you make your plans. And and he has, or the other one I like is man proposes, God disposes. Um,
well, it's true. I'll just quickly, the last thing I did as the president of medical center was I listened to a lot of patients, cancer patients, particularly, and listened to what they had to say about it. Dennis, I go to one place for chemotherapy, doctor's office here, radiation therapy here. We need one-stop shopping. So we got an advisory board together. I brought in patients, I brought in board members, I brought in doctors and people from the community. And we built this beautiful, beautiful cancer center, all one-stop shopping, including yoga, meditation, fireplace, waterfalls, everything. And when that was finished and I was looking for what's my next thing, I met with a woman from the American Cancer Society. And she said to me, Dennis, how'd you build what a board and how'd you build that team and how'd you raise all that money? And Larry, I remember about an hour and a half in her office. And when I was finished, I went outside because her office was like in a home in the parking lot in the backyard. And the light bulb went off, seriously. And I was divine intervention. I said, I'm going to help nonprofit organizations succeed. And I've had a couple of divine interventions in my life, and it's helped me play. So I'm part of
okay.
that spirit. I'm part of that
Well,
spirit.
well, I can certainly empathize with you. I mean, I've had twists and turns in my career, and even in the fundraising arena. One thing, and so now, do you is there, do you, I mean, do you adhere to a particular style? I mean, are you coming out of the Drucker school, the policy governance school? I
No,
mean,
no, I'm just no. 75 years of life learning, high level of emotional intelligence. I tell people my IQ is not that very high because my wife can beat me in Jeopardy anytime she wants, unless it's sports or utilities. No, I don't come from a particular school. I come from, I mean, you might call it servant leadership, but I believe uh, and I believe, leaders are people that can inspire others, but make sure that everybody feels heard, listened to, respected. And I think that's how I was successful, by treating people. And I won't go into one, but I grew up in a very difficult upbringing, and I had a difficult time as a kid. And I had a dad that was unfortunately very abusive and emotionally traumatic. And I made sure that I was going to treat people the way I wanted to be treated. And I think when you treat people right, good things happen. When you
So
treat people right,
did you say Severn leadership?
servant leadership, I
Oh,
mentioned a little.
servant leadership. Okay, because Severn
But
is a company, and I happen to know the principal there.
yeah,
Okay,
no, no, I believe in leadership.
servant leadership. Yes.
But I believe, I don't have a philosophy. I mean, from Columbia, from Drexel, it's a philosophy of myself that's worked. Basically, I'll stop with this. The most important thing I think for a leader today is to have a vision for your future of the organization. That's probably the most important thing you have, and a plan to get there, and then have everybody work towards that. But I'll stop at that point right now. I'll stop.
Okay. All right. Um, so are you focused on for-profit, non-profit, certain sizes of companies? What's your
Yeah,
real niche that you enjoy?
I made a decision. I focus exclusively on nonprofit social impact organizations.
Okay.
I have in the past helped board members had a small company, but and I was a corporate executive for 7 years too, in a publicly held company. But we and I deal exclusively with nonprofit organizations across the country in all 50 states. And that's what we deal with.
Okay.
Behavioral
Um,
health, addiction, children, families, Make-A-Wish, Girl Scouts, affordable housing, food security, things
mhm.
that impact people in a positive way. That's where I'm at.
So do you focus on a particular size in terms of budget, big, small?
No, I've had clients with a budget of 400,000. I've had a client with 400 million. So no,
Oh, okay. Well, here's what I tell people, and I think you're going to agree with this. I hope you will. Um, I tell people that the size of your organization really has little to do with your success in fundraising, and I suspect that it's the same in good board governance because it's the way you look at the problem.
yeah, that's right. You're right. No, I don't think size has to do with it. And I try not to turn anybody down, whether they can afford to pay me or not. And our fees are more than reasonable because they're just reasonable, and we get hired by a lot of people. So it's not the price, but and if necessary, I'll do a free consultation with someone if I have to. But I just enjoy what I do, Larry, and I enjoy it.
Okay, all right. So
I'm
any
not ready. I'm not ready to sit down yet and watch Days of Our Lives or with General Hospital with my wife. I'm not ready.
now
I'm
there's
not ready for that,
now now I know those programs. You know those programs. I suspect there are a lot of members of our audience that are like, what is he talking about? And of course that was the days of the mid-afternoon soap opera
Yes, yeah.
where you had nothing to do but would drink beer, sip a martini, munch on chips and watch soap operas.
My wonderful wife of 45 years is a retired surgical nurse practitioner, and watches the General Hospital Days of Our Lives, and I can't do it. So we'll see.
Oh, that sounds like the seventh level of hell for me, Dennis.
There you
Um,
go.
give me a break. Oh, so I want you to reach back into your experience for a minute, and I want you to maybe pull up maybe one, maybe two really interesting and thought-provoking stories in your own experience that you can share with us. It can be anything. It can be a success. It could be a failure, but
I'd be
yeah,
happy to. It's not going to be related to fundraising. That's okay. But
that's fine. That's fine. This is board
I
governance.
I had kept a secret for 66 years. Um, I wrote my autobiography. By the way, I just finished writing my seventh book. It's coming out soon. It's called "What Every Nonprofit CEO Needs to Know: A Guide to Achieving Your Organization's True Potential." Will be coming out soon.
Oh, that's
So
superb.
yeah, I kept a secret that, I was a very abused emotional child and didn't know it, but, behavioral problems in grammar school. I certainly had attention deficit. I didn't do academically in high school. My claim to fame was being a varsity football player. I didn't get into any college. And make a long story short, I wrote my book, Mopping Floors to CEO, From Hopelessness and Failure to Happiness and Success. I've been a keynote speaker last year at the FBI Leadership Conference. I have a TED Talk on my website, DennisCMiller.com, and my story is this. I was 20 years old. I self-admitted myself to a private psychiatric hospital because I was despondent, depressed, alone, despairing. A priest came to visit me from my mother's Irish Catholic parish. I was so impressed by the priest who unfortunately passed away, Father Don Gantley. He was a amazingly calm demeanor man, and I hadn't met a calm man with a demeanor like his. I came out of the hospital, I was 21 years old, maybe 2 or 3 months. Came out the same way I went in, and I went to the rectory and knocked on the door, and I cried for the first time, and he held my hand, listened, and I used to throw pebbles out the window. I was sitting in front of the church, wait for him to come home. And he eventually got me into a day hospital program, which now is called intensive outpatient IOPs. And it changed my life. I began to believe in my self-worth. Instead of always being viewed as a loser, I began to realize it was not what I was told. I began to have a voracious appetite to read and to learn. This was before Kindle. And I always tell people my books are on Kindle. And I devoured books at the library on religion, philosophy, great men and women of the world. I kept aspiring to do something, but I lived at home. And make a long story, at 24 years old, my father just threw me out of the house. Don't remember why, just threw me out. I stayed one night with a friend. I got a room in the YMCA. I got a job cleaning bathrooms at the local Ramada Inn. I was 24 years old. I got a room in a boarding house and moved out of the YMCA. And then after a year and a half of cleaning bathrooms and living in living in the boarding house, I had a real divine intervention. And it said, Dennis, if you don't get an education, you're not going to get anywhere. And I said, how am I going to get an education? I got rejected by every college I applied to, with the exception of the county college in New Jersey, where I grew up. You got to accept it. And so I said, but how am I going to, write a letter? How am I going to get into these colleges? I said, write a letter to every private or every college, public and state university in New Jersey. Write a letter to the president. Tell them how badly you want to get educated. And I did. I got into every college in New Jersey and chose Rutgers and graduated tops of my class.
There you go.
I graduated Phi Beta Kappa, and my wife's nickname for me is Phi when I do something stupid, which is quite often around the house or something like, hey, I don't you know how to turn on your computer, or don't you know how to peel potato or something like that. And from there, I ended up graduating. I went into Columbia University School of Public Health. Before you know it, I went from mopping floors to CEO. True story.
Okay. All right. So tell me about, and you can keep the names out to protect the guilty. Tell me about a client or an individual that you worked with that had a particular impact on your career, or something you were able to do to help them.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. And even say, man, I spoke to the CEO the other day. I was honored to work with Make-A-Wish. And I started with Make-A-Wish in New Jersey, a fabulous CEO named Tommy Weatherall. Fabulous guy, fabulous guy. And he needed help with his board. And I got to help him kind of, I met with the board. Now we have tools to do assessments, online. But back then I did it by interviewing everybody.
Oh, I remember those days. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And Larry, I remember, and when I first met Tom in Make-A-Wish, they were like in a building that was now like an internal medicine office in New Jersey. And they eventually built this beautiful castle. You got to go see this online, Make-A-Wish, New Jersey, this castle, like
Okay.
Disneyland. And the impact they had on kids who had, sort of life-threatening issues, that had such a positive impact upon me. And so all the clients I began dealing with had to do with something to do with people. So whether it was, behavioral health care, affordable housing, food insecurity. I do a lot of work with development disabilities. And you see how for the nonprofit sector, it's the glue that keeps our country's community together.
Yeah.
It's the glue. And people of all faiths have a positive impact upon people that have just made me, at the end of the day, feel like I've done my day's
Mhm.
work. I've done a good job.
So, so what did
And
you do for Make-A-Wish? What was your first assignment there?
whatever I did a board assessment. And I remember I did a board assessment. I met with the board members because most board members are very well meaning, but there's
Yes,
very little training about being a board. And for most
that's
times,
true.
people are like, what do you mean? I'm the president of the local bank. You're going to train me to be on a board? What are you kidding me? I'll be your meetings. I'll make a contribution. I'll go to your gala, but you're going to train me? I need training. And I'm like, yeah, you do. So one of the things that I suggested to them was, and it's part of my thing, is that besides the fiduciary responsibility of a board, which everybody understands, it's like make sure that
Yeah.
your mission is appropriate and you're following policy and procedures that are appropriate. And boards, became advisors. So, let's review and approve your strategic plan and your fundraising plan and maybe your business, whatever, review your plan. But and at the end of the day, it's all in favor, say aye, and the meeting's over. But what I suggested to them back then, which I still today, which is that there's another step I call the 4 stages of governance. So this founding board, and I met the founder of Make-A-Wish, believe it or not, years ago.
Oh, wow.
Fiduciary, there's strategic, being a strategic advisor, but there's one of partnership. When the board and the CEO form a true partnership where the board owns your vision as much as you do as the CEO, and you want, as a board member, you want to achieve it as much as he or she does, and you work collaboratively with them to get it to him. I say, hey, I met this guy, Larry Johnson last week. I want you to meet him, so have a breakfast or invite him over. And so when boards have a partnership and feel a sense of ownership, I find it becomes a much more mature,
Oh, yeah.
successful, winning organization. And that's what I guided with them on. And then from there, I got to meet their previous CEO, David Williams, who was a fabulous guy. I spoke at their conferences, did work in California, did work for other chapters and things like that. So that was
Okay.
a big thing for me.
All right. Okay.
The other thing I did, if I can, just one thing here too, is I remember this was over a dozen years ago, earlier. So I became approved by the Robert Johnson Foundation at the time, become a approved consultant to hire for their for capacity building in New Jersey, where I live now. I'm in Southern
Yeah.
California.
Now,
And
Robert Wood Johnson is like the Murdoch Foundation here in Idaho. You're one of maybe a half a dozen foundations in the country that will make capacity building grants to a
yeah,
nonprofit. That's one of the irony of it, that's one of the best gifts. And yet there aren't that many organizations who either know about it or take them up on it.
yeah. And so anyway, one of the clients that I got was called MCOA, MCOHA. It's called Morris County Organization for Hispanic Affairs. Now, I was pleased. I mean, my wife is Hispanic. She's Puerto Rican. She speaks Spanish fluently. It's when she's talking on the phone, I know she's talking about me. And no. But one of the programs they had a need for, besides legal immigration, this is back 12 years ago in 2012, and I created
Yeah.
for them something called the Center for Legal Immigration Citizenship, which was amazing back then. But they had so many people that just did not know about medical care. So they would go to a doctor and get a prescription for an antibiotic, and after 3 days they stopped taking because they felt better.
Mhm.
So I said, you can't do that. So, but they didn't have nurses. So I went with my contacts to a top flight hospital. It's called Morristown Medical Center. Now it's part of Atlantic Health System. Everybody's part of some system. And they created a partnership with McCullough, and we created something called Health Education.
Yes.
So the nurses and from the hospital would come there and teach people about, if you get a prescription, but you want to take it for all 10 days.
Yeah.
So little things like that. But I mean, I remember McCullough, and it was a wonderful CEO at the time, Ziamara Guerreras, and I just loved helping them. And you know what I enjoyed, Larry, was that people, they just kind of appreciated me, and it was just simple. I just enjoyed small things that were, in their eyes, were big, but helping them become a strong organization. And I agree with you. I mean, why aren't there more capacity building grants? I don't know, but they're not. I mean, because most times, unfortunately, in the corporate giving world, in my experience, it's been more PR for the company who's giving than anything else. But that's another story altogether.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Those are two things that I remember, that were very impactful to me.
Okay. Well, I know that they'll do these grants, but sometimes, well, they'll do it for fundraising, capacity building, and too often than not, instead of doing the right planning and hiring someone that's going to be a full-time officer to get you off the ground, they'll spend it on technology or a grant writer or something that's very temporary, and then they don't know how to use it and they don't know how to grow into it. And I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, that's good. So you get a donor system, and then they don't how you're going to use it.
We could talk about that. In the last few years, there have been so many of these new tech platforms.
Yeah, and I'm not a tech guy, so I'm like the worst. I tell people I'll never be the chairman of MIT because Miller Information Technology is not going to be my company because I'm not a tech guy. So be careful. I can text you, I can email you, I can do a post now on LinkedIn, but I'm not a tech guy.
Okay. Well, it's not that technology doesn't have its place. It does. But what I've noticed in the last, especially 5 years, but maybe a little bit long that, is these platforms have become so sophisticated. They're making claims that I know are pretty tenuous. For instance, being able to tell you exactly who to ask for what, how much, when, and where. Well, that's, people aren't rational in that sense, and that you can't predict it with that degree of accuracy. But the other thing that I think annoys me about that is that, and I think nonprofits, for the most part, are not very technically savvy, and they tend to be naive, and they're susceptible to these sales pitches that, well, I think they're buying Ferraris when they really need lawnmowers.
Yeah, right. Yes, you're right. Yeah. Exactly.
So
or they buy a lawnmower when they need a pair of scissors.
That too. Oh, I like that. I like that. That's even better.
Yeah.
That's even better, because they think that's going to solve their problem, which it doesn't. And I'm sure you've seen this. Excuse me. But being successful in fundraising, and I'm sure it is in governance, it's much more about mindset than anything else.
Yeah, and if I can, what I talk to people about or teach people about or speak about at a conference is something like this. First of all, it's amazing if you ask people, and we do plenty of webinars and workshops, and we have a nonprofit 4-part symposium coming up soon. But it was like, I said, do you have any idea how much money is given in the U.S. in a given year? And they go, like,
almost 600 billion.
No, yeah, they go like 5 million. I go more. And they go like 200 million. I go, and they go 1 billion. And I go, yeah, it's like 600 billion. But then again, I say, but you know where most of that comes from. And they go, yeah, corporations have found that. No, they don't. It's 20%. It's individuals and families. So here's what I did, Larry, without realizing I did it, if that makes any sense. When I took over my last hospital, they told me it was making money, it was losing money. They told me patient satisfaction was good, it was not very good. They brought in press gaining, blah, blah, blah. And within 2 years, we became the top 1% in patient satisfaction in the United States. doubled our
Okay.
revenue from 100 million to 200 million. We built $100 million expansion program. And
Hmm.
the way I did that was, without realizing it, was we're constantly communicating the success, the impact we're having in the community. And so when I tell people this, and this is true, I tell people, there's 5 reasons that I know of why people give money. One, they give because they've been asked. Yes, I mean, we all can pray to God, but they give asked. It's either a phone call, a letter, a social media post, something, but they've been asked.
They were
2,
asked.
they give to someone they trust and respect.
Yes.
3, they give to one of their community, whether it's a local community, a global, national community, they give it to make something better. But there's 2 other reasons that are vital. And I tell people give to success, not to distress.
They do
And the
indeed.
more you communicate the positive impact you are having in your community, however you define it, and the more you can have the people that you're impacting even tell their story, the better off you will be. And then number 2, with that, people give to the needs of those you serve, not your organizational needs. So you can go and say, we need a new theater, we need a new gym, we need a new school. It's fine. But it's much better if you talk about the needs of the kids that are in that school.
Yeah.
And so I tell people all the time, people give to success. And those that are successful, you see them, whether it's a hospital, a university, or a nonprofit, they're tying their horn all over the place. And because people want to see return on their dollar.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing, if I made a contribution all to our clients over past 20 years, and we're not a firm that you hire to go out and raise money. We don't do campaigns. We're not
That's
that.
right.
But I got a fabulous guy, Pat Collins, on my team who's got 30 years of experience, and we can help people get through the stuff. What I call the tri-partnership so with the board, the CEO or executive director, and the development officer work together in partnership. And here's the other piece. So yes, to know that people give to success. And just because the woman or the man is the wealthiest person on the top of the hill in your town doesn't mean they're going to give to you if they don't know you.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so
It's 2 things. It's ability, as you just mentioned, but it's also affinity. Is there an affinity for you? It takes both. It takes both things.
I was blessed to have met Betty Merck from the Merck Company.
Mm-hmm.
And I never, a few people came on a tour. Our chief development officer, head of the foundation, who I promoted, was a guy named David Flood, who today is probably the best development officer in the United States. He's the president of the Intermountain Healthcare Foundation in Utah and in the region. He's the chief enterprise officer, and he does like 200 million a year, some small stuff.
Just small stuff.
But he brought a couple of influential women into the hospital to meet with me, way back when, 20 years ago. And we hit it off really well. And I'll never forget, meeting Betty Merck. I mean, I also met, Will, the guy from the Johnson Johnson Company, the guy who owns the Jets. I met him. But when people started to see the positive stuff we did, so my predecessor raised 3 million in a campaign. We did 30. But here's something I also ask or mention to people. And I'm sure you have, and your listeners have, I've served on boards, I've been a board chair, etc. When you ask a board member, for the most part, and not everybody, but when you ask a board member to ask someone for money, it's a fear they have of, it's even maybe unconscious. They just fear this rejection. It's personal. They feel it's personal. Like if I ask you for money and $10 and you say not, and hey, I reject it. But I say to people, I don't want you, Larry, asking people for money. If I'm having a gala or a 5K race and you want to ask for a sponsor, that's fine. But here's what I'm going to ask you to do. So if I've got 10 board members or 15, let's say 10. At my age, I can do the math without a calculator, And I ask you if you're willing to commit to me, helping us in my development office, if I'm the CEO or the president, help me cultivate at least 3 to 4 to 5 potential donors in a given year.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3, not 10, not 15, not a list of, not an Excel spreadsheet of 200, 3 to 5. And it doesn't mean we're going to go out and ask them, but maybe bring them to our place, having lunch, meeting with me, then whatever. Have a beer, have a drink, have a glass of
Yeah.
wine. So I don't want my board I don't want to ask people for asking for money. Help me cultivate a relationship, because if they're a good friend of yours, or they respect you and you respect me and they get to know us, then me or my development officer can make the ask eventually, but eventually, not right away. So that's a big piece here, is the part of solicitation of that. And the other thing is this, I call, and there's a lot of stuff, Larry, for free for deals on our website, denniscmiller.com, C as in Charles, is moving away from the tin cup theory, if I can talk about this for a second, to the investment theory.
Yeah.
And when I was a little kid, and my mother occasionally, when they had money, would take me and my brothers to Radio City Music Hall Christmas time, see the Christmas show, Rockefeller Center. And it was, if you haven't seen it, it's amazing. I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's life changing. But who was outside sitting outside the Port Authority bus terminal was always this disheveled looking guy sitting on a cardboard box, looks disheveled like me, with a tin cup selling pencils. And for most us and people, they view fundraising as begging, selling pencils.
Yes.
But if you move away from the tin cup theory and you think about the success we're having and the impact we're having, and you want your board to get involved in that, now you're asking people, don't give me money, but will you invest in my success? So for every dollar you give me, or for every $10 you give me, or every $1,000 you give me, here's the impact it's going to have. It makes a difference. And I think
Yes.
that's important. And then one last point I want to make, because again, I don't want to forget at my age. I call, Larry, the 50% rule. So most board meetings are something like this, most of them. Okay, when you call the meeting to order, approval of the minutes of the last meeting, all in favor, say aye. Aye, all of them. Okay, John, President John, give an update. So I believe it, I had a client once, he read his update that he handed out electronically like 2 weeks before. And then finance gives a report, and then programs and facilities and donors and, something like that. And then anything else, the meeting's called to order. I say to people, it's important to have a good, obviously, committee structure, so that the good boards have a committee that does most of the work.
Yes.
It's like being an employer. Most of the employees do the work, not the owner. But ask a question, have a question prepared ahead of time. If not for every board meeting, maybe for every other board meeting like this. So all the reports are done, and the meeting starts, I'm making this up, 6 o'clock at night, and your committees are done at 7. It says, okay, so Larry, let's assume you're the board chair and I'm the CEO. So
Yes.
Larry, you'd say, okay. All right, so today we're going to talk about what is the impact we're having in our community? What impact we're having? And John and Jane, what do you think? And have a discussion amongst your board about that. Or,
Yes.
hey Jane, how do we measure? Hey Larry, how do we measure success here? How do we measure Dennis' success as the CEO? How do we measure our success as a board? And have a discussion, but make sure that everybody is involved in a conversation. That there's always 2 people
Yes.
who never
Yes.
shut up like me, and there's 2 people who don't say anything. So
you have
make
to
sure
even that out some way.
Yeah, fill that, and then but here's the one I love. What's the value we bring to our community? And here's the other question. I love this. Why are we worthy of a gift? And I never forget this. I'm not going to go anywhere near the organization's name. But at a board meeting for a client once, years ago, I asked the CEO, I said, if your organization didn't exist, what would be the impact? And I expected this gentleman to say, all kind of things. And he said, it wouldn't be any impact. Someone else would take over. I'm like, whatever. So anyway, there's a lot of small little trinkets of the world of fundraising, philanthropy,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that could dramatically change an organization's success. So whether you have a budget of $250,000 and you're in North Dakota, or $250 million and you're in Philadelphia, things like knowing you're going to give to success, have an impact upon people. That's why people give almost $600 million. And now there's a lot of bequests and all that stuff, but that's what people do.
Well, and that's what I was going to reinforce, is that people want to invest in something they perceive as a success.
Yeah.
Um, they want to be successful themselves, so they
And
want to
associated
invest in
with that.
something that's
And
in success.
I'm sorry, Larry, to interrupt, but it's an associated with success. Associated with
Um,
success.
one thing I read recently in a biography I was reading, it's a pretty noteworthy guy, and he was in the nonprofit sector, and he said he always tried to get his board members to understand that when he released, what, $8,500 for whatever. I mean, if he would give that, that they would be thankful for it, and they would do that. Like, what am I trying to say here? Um, I've lost my train of thought, Dennis. This is
Okay,
awful.
but I want to think about it, but I'm going to come back because I do that myself. But here's something else I want people, listeners, to think about. And we do a 5-year analysis of people's donor database. And you see this bar graph go up, Larry, of all first-time donors every year,
Mhm.
first-time donors.
Oh yes, renewals or lack thereof.
The lack of the rub. I'm going to make this up. You have 100 people that gave you $100 and you've done nothing with them at all. And then when you go out and ask them for a second gift, the following year, it drops off to 20
Because it's
because you haven't done anything with them. And
yeah.
like, it's like constantly looking for a new date. Once in a while, you got to get married, you know?
Well, well, the overall first year donor renewal rate is around 40%. And I say to people, so tell me, excuse me, how many businesses do you know that could stay in business losing over half their customers every year? And people, when you put it that way, people kind of go, "What?" But here's what I was going to say before I forget it again. One thing that I read recently was when you have a board and they're successful, or you want to attract people who are successful, if you can give them the idea that your success in the organization is actually their success,
Yeah.
they will be all over you. Give the credit to them. Let them tell you how you show them how successful they were for doing this. I thought that is so clever. Oh my.
Larry, it's so important because the board member needs to feel that they're part of that success. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Not just all in favor, say aye. That
All in
you also
favor,
need,
say aye. I love that. I love it. I love it.
yeah, it's one of those I have all in favor, say aye, aye. And there's things that, so I did things I realized years later without even knowledge it. So when I spearheaded a campaign at my last medical center, I didn't read any books about fundraising. I didn't go to any that I know of AFP conferences or AHP. I might have went to one or two, um, but I just what I did, and I'm going to tell you this quick story.
Please.
What I did was I've been in the corporate world for 7 years after my first stint as running a medical center as an executive or top executive. And I missed the hospital medical world. Was my sense of family since I didn't really grow up with them. And I got recruited and took on this job. And it was an hour from my house. And it was wonderful. I said, oh. And again, the board and the search company told me how well it was doing. It was a nice community in a nice county. And I said, great. And I got there and I said, I think I told you earlier on, it was not doing well financially. I won't get the details, but even the board didn't know it. It's amazing. And what I did was get roll up my sleeves and turn this place around by, doing the right thing, bringing the right people. And
Yes.
so, and eventually, I remember this. I, almost died twice of asthma, had a massive asthma attack
Oh, really?
when I was 51.
Wow.
And I went from like bronchitis, coughing to, my wife had to call 911 and come to the house and whatever. So at the time, before I built this $100 million expansion of private rooms, the only private rooms we had were the oncology floor. And you think about it, when You go to a hotel, you don't expect to have someone else in the room with you, you know? I mean, you think you're gonna get a room at the Holiday Inn, it's gonna be by yourself or your family or the Hilton, but not walking, there's be another couple there next door. So we have a lot of
That's true.
semi-private rooms, anyway. So I'll never forget the nurse said, Mr. Miller, you know, there's a patient or a husband, you know, do you want to see if we can talk with you? And I'm like, first of all, how do they know I'm here? That's number one. Number two, I don't feel good. I'm on 200 prednisone tablets, whatever. I'm like,
Oh,
yeah. But I said, if I don't go, they'll complain. So I said, let me put my bathrobe on and find out how bad the mashed potatoes were. That's what I figured I was going to find out. And I walked over there and I walked into the room. I said hello to the wife who's the patient in the bed. I shook her husband's name. And I'll never forget this. He said, and he goes, Mr. Miller. He goes, and I was there like this is the 5th year, I think myself. He goes, I don't know what you did, but you turned this hospital around. 5 years ago, I wouldn't want to come here and die. Now you walk in here, it's amazing. You have a maitre d' outside, you have people parking your car, admitting people with the food service, nursing. It is amazing the positive response we get here. It's amazing. I said, thank you.
okay.
And the key to success in philanthropy and fundraising, to me, is a couple of simple things. Do the best you can for those you serve, promote it, talk about the impact you're having, and focus in about why the investment of $1 or $5 or $100 or that, whatever the investment can make a difference.
Mhm.
And reach out to people throughout your community to know that. And that's what you want your board for. That's what your job is as CEO. And your development officer is to help you quarterback it. And I call that approach the tri-partnership of philanthropy, where there's 3 of you working together.
Quarterback it. I like that
Backing
term.
it, but it's not, anyway, that's what I believe in.
I'm kind of, well, you know, what I've been hearing, Dennis, is the way I was taught to do this. There isn't much that changes. It's pretty consistent. It's dealing with human nature. You know, it I just want to marinate in this for a minute, because what we've been talking about is, for lack of appearing redundant, is what people call common sense, because it is taking from the commonality of people, putting it together into a mission that means something, appealing to people on the basis of their interests. And then from that comes something that you couldn't do otherwise. That's really what you're telling me.
Yes, I am, Larry, but and there's another basic thing too, which is this. One of the things that our firm does, that I do, we do, we do a lot of board governance training, retreat facilitation, and people love it. But there's a fear amongst a lot of executive directors, CEOs, to bring someone else in who's knowledgeable to do board training, retreat facilitation, whatever. But on top of it, we have tools, DennisCMiller.com. We have CEO evaluation tools and self-evaluation tools, leadership tools, and board tools. And it's not like, what do you mean you got to assess me? It's like, we can help you identify your strengths. And so you want to tell people, hey, you should be congratulating yourself. You do this as well as anybody in the country. But there's two areas where you could probably do better. And one might be, and I'll explain about board recruitment, and one may be in raising money. And people go, yeah. And so that's your job as running an organization, is to bring in the expertise to help your team grow. And so when a board member comes on board, they walk into the room and it's all in favor, say aye. And what you want them to do is be trained to say, talk about your success, the impact. Here's what happens. If you're a board member and you go into an organization that all you hear is about our financial needs, we're operating a deficit. We can't make payroll. We can't build this. Our blinds, the driveways, and not go, everything we can't afford, and needs. It's not a great place. But when you start hearing about, little by little, the positive impact that you had in this one kid's life, When I seen a kid walk through the doors of Make-A-Wish in New Jersey and seeing the smile on his face coming from years of chemotherapy, it just changes your life. And for me, I had life-changing events, and I had the opportunity to run two major medical centers, which was delightful to me. I'm good in business, but I like people-centered things. And it's why I do what I do today with my team, is just helping people become more successful, whether it's in governance and leadership and philanthropy. And that's what it comes
Okay.
down to.
Government, governance, leadership, and fundraising. Well,
Yes.
let me just take and draw that as we draw to a conclusion here. Governance, fundraising, and what was the third thing again? Leadership. Okay. All right. You know, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm trying to, you're like listening to an open fire plug sometimes, Dennis. There's so much coming at me, and you have these nuggets that just come out that I really, really like. But one thing I really like is that you have the seasons, the experience, the seasoning to be successful. And one thing that I've liked about what you said also is that we're talking about things that are common to all people, and
Yes.
and that is so important. That this is not something that's restricted to this group or that group, or it's not rocket science. So now you just said something I want to go back to. You said you're on your seventh book. Your seventh book is coming out.
Yeah, I always tell people this is Mrs. Fritz, my seventh grade English teacher, knew I wrote two sentences together, grammatically correct. She'd have a heart attack because I wasn't a good student. I have written seven book. My seventh book is it's being published probably next week.
So what's the
Uh,
title?
it's called What Every Nonprofit CEO Needs to Know, a guide to achieving your organization's true potential. I will make sure I send you a free signed copy, but here's the five themes.
All right.
One, you need to have an inspirational vision statement, but measurable with metrics. Having a vision statement that we want every child to be healthy is nice. I do too. But how do you know if you're achieving it? So your vision statement needs to be not another
Yeah.
mission statement. Okay. But you have to have metrics. Number two, you need today contemporary competencies of leadership. So yes, mission-driven person is very important and a grant writer, but a visionary thinker, a high EQ, a collaborator, relationship builder, and someone who has an entrepreneurial spirit. Number three, an engaged and motivated board we talked about, but
Oh yeah.
someone who's been trained and we're good at that. Number four, clearly a positive brand identity. So when you hear their name, behavioral health of Idaho, whatever it is, you have a positive image of them. And then last but not least, you were able to create a successful culture of philanthropy. And those five things are what's needed to achieve your true potential. And I outlined
Okay.
that. And that's
All right.
it.
Now, well, so when will the book be available?
It's coming out soon. They're working on the cover right now. So it'll be coming
Okay.
out
All
soon.
right. And the title, one more time.
What every nonprofit CEO needs to know, a guide to achieving your organization's true potential. And I've been
Okay.
fortunate to have achieved most of my potential, and I want to help others to achieve theirs, and that's what the book is about.
Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be looking for this book when it comes out. Let's give it a month, maybe two. When you're doing the
Oh,
cover.
no, it's coming out soon.
Oh, soon. Okay, fine. All right.
Like next
And
week.
next week. All right. Um, well, thank you, Dennis, very much for doing this.
Well, Larry, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, and I'll
Uh,
reciprocate at some point in time too with my podcast called Visionary Leaders, and I'm going to have you on as well. So I thank you.
thank you, thank you. I didn't do it for a quid pro quo, but I do appreciate it. So, everyone, we've been having a delightful time getting to know one another, and of course, what is it? Uh, Good minds think alike, strong minds think alike.
Bald heads think alike. Bald
Well,
heads think alike.
that too. So I want to thank Dennis again, and I want to thank you and my audience for taking some of your time to be with us today. Next week, we'll have another individual with a particular point of view, just like Dennis. Thanks so much for joining.